Protesters against the proposed tax overhaul were detained on Capitol Hill on Tuesday. CreditTasos KatopodisGetty ImagesGood. Good morning. Here's what you need to know. Republicans increasingly optimistic about the fate of the Senate's tax bill, after the Budget Committee voted along party lines on Tuesday to advance the $1.5 trillion package. Here's what the bill would mean for 25,000 middle-class families. With a procedural vote planned today, the Republican mood is far different from earlier this year. At this point in the healthcare debate, people were walking out and talking about each other's mamas and getting mad, and it just wasn't healthy. It wasn't productive, one senator said. It was like a bunch of kids in the back of a minivan. Also on Tuesday, the effort to avert a government shutdown next month got off to a rocky start after talks between President Trump and Democratic leaders broke down. At the White House on Tuesday, President Trump sat between empty seats meant for Senator Chuck Schumer and Representative Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic leaders. CreditTasos, the New York Times. Pyongyang said today that it had successfully tested a missile that could deliver nuclear warheads anywhere in the continental U.S. President Trump said, "We will handle the situation." Defense Secretary Jim Mattis noted that the rocket went higher, frankly, than any previous shot they've taken. Experts said the launch underscored the increasing sophistication of North Korea's program. President Trump once said that the infamous Access Hollywood tape of his making vulgar comments about women was authentic. Now, he's not so sure. "We don't think that was my voice," Mr. Trump told a senator in January. And the president has continued to seed doubt about the tape. The White House declined to comment, but some of Mr. Trump's advisors say he harbors a handful of conspiracy theories that have no grounding in fact. The aides say that behind closed doors, Mr. Trump has questioned former President Barack Obama's birth certificate and claimed that he lost the popular vote last year because of fraud. Pope Francis avoided using the name of the persecuted Muslim minority in a much-anticipated speech in Myanmar on Tuesday. The omission disappointed rights advocates who had hoped he would denounce the military's actions. The future of Myanmar must be peace, a peace based on respect for the dignity and rights of each member of society, respect for each ethnic group and its identity, Francis said, addressing a gathering including Myanmar's civilian leader, Aung San Suu Kyi. An assailant took a hostage and opened fire from the 8th floor of a luxury high-rise condominium in Reno, Nevada, on Tuesday, shooting for about 20 minutes onto the streets below, the authorities said. No injuries were reported in the episode, which was reminiscent of the mass shooting in Las Vegas in October. The gunman though it was unclear whether he had been killed by police gunfire or had shot himself. Separately, the Air Force said it had failed to report dozens of service members to a federal gun background check database as required. The Air Force also didn't report the domestic violence conviction of the gunman in this month's church shooting in Texas. Journals kept by a chemist provide a new level of detail about Russia's elaborate cheating at the last Winter Olympics. The notes, seen exclusively by The Times, are among the critical pieces of evidence that could result in Russia being absent from the next Games. Olympic officials will announce their decision on Dec. 5. The U.S. government has yet to compensate any of the families of civilian casualties from the battle against the militant group. Why? Listen on a computer, an iOS device or an Android device. In a win for President Trump, his pick, Mick Mulvaney, will be the acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It usually doesn't take much to get internet users worked up. To get them really worked up, make the topic internet regulation. That includes our tech columnist, who says that killing so-called net neutrality rules would also kill the internet as we know it. Retail jobs don't need to be bad, our economics columnist writes. U.S. stocks were up on Tuesday. Here's a snapshot of global markets. Tips, both new and old, for a more fulfilling life. A stylist offers tips for style on a budget. How to paint your apartment, with tips from a professional. Recipe of the day: hearty split pea soup can be even better with bacon. Not all readers agree. The physical internet. In today's 360 video, visit Herald Square in New York City, where we identify the objects that help make our lives possible. How far will Sean Hannity go? The Fox News host is willing to defend President Trump at all costs, and he is reaching 13.5 million people a day doing it. The Times Magazine profiled the man whom Stephen Bannon calls the single most important voice for the deplorables. Jay's a top Grammy list. The rapper received 8 nominations for his album, 444, as hip-hop and R&B dominated the list. Here are the nominees for the top 20 categories. Ugly Baby's Pretty Dishes. A memorably named Thai restaurant in Brooklyn offers items rarely seen in New York City. Our critic Pete Wells writes, Best of Late-Night TV. Bernie Sanders received a Grammy nod for the audiobook version of Our Revolution. He was nominated in the Shout Edward category. Seth Meyers said, For late-night hosts, being sharply critical of President Trump has been a winning strategy. That's bad news for Jimmy Fallon and The Tonight Show. Quotation of the day, There's no way we could survive if there were more fires than snakes. Prael Krong-Yos, Deputy Director of the Bangkok Fire and Rescue Department, which has responded to more than 31,000 calls about snakes this year. Some pythons have even slithered up through toilets. Call it the Trump-Xi conundrum. China finally feels it has a car capable of following vehicles from Japan, Germany and South Korea into the U.S. market, but its biggest roadblock might be its name. The Chinese automaker GAC Motor insists that its popular Trump-Xi vehicles, which went into mass production in 2010, have nothing to do with the U.S. president. A Trump-Xi electric car at a motor show in Guangzhou, China, this year. Credit Kwok for the New York Times. When we reported last week on plans to sell the Trump-Xi in the U.S. by 2019, GAC officials said that they might rethink the branding. Automotive history, littered as it is with unfortunate car names, suggests this is probably a good idea. There's been the Mazda Scrum Wagon, the Mitsubishi Lettuce, the Nissan Homey Super Long and the Isuzu Giga 20 Light Dump, not to be confused with the Honda Life Dunk. Volkswagen offered the Tiguan, a mashup of Tiger and Iguana. Ford shortened Cougar into Kuga for some markets, and Renault famously had Le Car. General Motors has long been ridiculed for marketing the Chevy Nova in Spanish-speaking countries, where the name translates to, doesn't go, no VA. The Nova actually sold well in Latin America. GAC officials told our Shanghai bureau chief that, in Chinese, Trump-Xi had a little like passing on happiness. Any decision on changing the name, they said, would be announced in January, at an auto show in Detroit. Charles McDermott contributed reporting, _______. Your morning briefing is published weekdays at 6 a.m. Eastern and updated all morning. Browse past briefings here. If photographs appear out of order, please download the updated New York Times app from iTunes or Google Play. What would you like to see here? Contact us at briefing@nytimes.com. You can get the briefing delivered to your inbox Sunday through Friday. We have 4 global editions, timed for the Americas, Europe, Asia and Australia, and an evening briefing on weeknights. Check out our range of free newsletters here.